The bottle slipped from his trembling hand and rolled across the wooden floor, stopping just short of the door. For a moment, Eli Carter stared at it, listening to his own breathing, thin, broken, and painfully loud in the silence of the one-room cabin. That bottle was the only thing standing between him and the grave. Without it, the fever in his lungs would finish what weeks of sickness had already begun. The doctor had said it plainly before riding away. 1 dose a day, no more, no less. And now, with death sitting on his chest like a weight, Eli wondered if this would be the night he ran out of time. The knock came just as he reached for the bottle. It was weak, almost apologetic, as if whoever stood outside already knew they were asking for too much. Eli froze. No one came to this part of the plains after dark. The nearest town was miles away, and the land around his small ranch was empty, wild, and unforgiving. Another knock followed, then a faint sound that tightened his throat, a soft cry, barely carried by the wind. He forced himself up every step a battle. When he opened the door, cold night air rushed in, and with it, a sight that stole what little breath he had left. A young native girl lay crumpled on his porch, her dark hair stuck to her face with blood and sweat. Her eyes fluttered open for a second, glassy with fever, then closed again. One leg was wrapped in a torn strip of cloth, stained deep red. Eli knelt beside her, the world spinning. He didn't need a doctor to know what was happening. Infection had set in. Without medicine, she would be gone by morning. Inside the cabin, the lantern flickered as Eli laid her near the fire. He cleaned her wound with shaking hands, his cough tearing through him in violent waves. Each time he tried to catch his breath, pain burned deep in his chest. When he finished, he sat back on his heels, staring at the small table where the medicine waited. There were only 2 doses left. Eli thought of the ranch, the broken fence he never finished fixing, the fields that hadn't seen rain in months. He thought of his wife, Mary, buried on the hill behind the house, and the promise he had made to live long enough to keep the land alive for both of them. He thought of the doctor's words and the quiet certainty in his voice. Then he looked at the girl. She was burning with fever, her breathing shallow, her face twisted in pain even in sleep. She reminded him of the children who used to pass through the area with their families, laughing and curious, long before sickness had chased most people away. Long before the land felt so empty. Eli picked up the bottle. His hand shook as he measured the dose, then hesitated. 1 dose for her meant 1 less day for him. 2 doses might save her life and end his. He closed his eyes. Somewhere deep inside, he felt a strange calm settle over him. "I'm already dying," he whispered to the empty room. "We're not." He gave her both doses. The night stretched on endlessly. Eli sat beside her, coughing, sweating, drifting in and out of consciousness. More than once, he thought he felt Mary's hand on his shoulder, steady and warm. He did not know if it was memory or something else, but it gave him enough strength to stay awake until the girl's fever finally began to break. By dawn, the bottle was empty. Eli collapsed onto his bed, his body weak, his vision blurring at the edges. The girl slept quietly now. Her color improved, her breathing even. He watched the sunlight creep across the ceiling and wondered, without fear, if this was the last sunrise he would ever see. Voices woke him. They were low and urgent, coming from outside the cabin. Footsteps followed, then the door opened slowly. Eli turned his head and saw an elderly native man step inside, tall and dignified, his long gray hair braided down his back. His eyes moved from Eli to the girl by the fire, then to the empty medicine bottle. Understanding passed over his face like a shadow. "You gave her your medicine," the man said softly. Eli nodded, too tired to speak. The man placed a hand over his heart. "I am her grandfather. I am the healer of our people." Behind him, others gathered, women with tear-filled eyes, men standing watchful and still. They had followed the girl's trail at first light, fearing the worst. The healer knelt beside Eli, listening to his breathing, feeling his pulse, his brow furrowed. "You are very sick," he said. Eli managed a weak smile. "I know." The healer stood and spoke to his people in their language, his voice rising and falling with emotion. The girl's mother stepped forward and knelt, pressing her forehead to the floor in front of Eli's bed. Her quiet sobs filled the room. "You chose her life over your own," the healer said at last. "That kind of choice carries great weight." Eli closed his eyes. "I didn't want a child dying alone on my porch." The healer nodded. "Then you will not die alone either." They carried Eli from the cabin on a stretcher, the sky wide and blue above him. He felt the cold air on his face, smelled sage and earth as they took him deep into the hills. There, the healer began his work. Old remedies made from roots and leaves, chants whispered to the land, careful hands guiding Eli's broken body back from the edge. The days were long and painful. Eli burned with fever, then shook with chills. He dreamed of wide-open fields, of Mary standing in the grass, watching him with quiet pride. Each time he woke, the young girl was nearby, sitting silently, holding his hand as if afraid to let go. Slowly, the sickness loosened its grip. Weeks passed. Eli learned to breathe without pain. His strength returned in pieces, small but steady. When he could finally stand on his own, the healer watched him carefully, then smiled. "The land remembers kindness," he said. "You gave life when you had none to spare. The land gave it back." When Eli returned to his ranch, he did not return alone. Members of the tribe came with him, helping repair his fences, bringing food and water, teaching him ways to work with the land instead of against it. The girl he had saved ran through the fields, laughing, her strength fully restored. Eli lived many more years than any doctor would have believed. But more than that, he lived differently. He shared what he had, helped where he could, and never forgot the night he gave away his last medicine. Because in the end, it was not the medicine that saved him. It was the choice. And the simple truth that even in our weakest moments, compassion can become the strongest medicine of all.